Good morning, everyone. I'm Chief Pamela Smith, Chief of Police of the Metropolitan Police Department here in the District of Columbia. I am joined today by Deputy Mayor Lindsay Appiah, Public Safety and Justice Deputy Mayor, also Assistant Chief Ramey Kyle, who is the Bureau Chief of our Investigative Services Bureau, as well as Commander Michael Pulliam, who is also the commander of our 3rd District. We are here today to announce the arrest of 2 suspects responsible for a series of robberies in this community on Sunday, October 27th, including the robbery of 39-year-old Brian Smith, who was walking home in the 500 block of T Street Northwest. On behalf of the Metropolitan Police Department, as well as myself, I extend my deepest condolences to Mr. Smith's family, as well as his friends. While nothing can undo this senseless loss, we hope today's arrest offers some measure of justice and a step toward healing. We are here to send a very clear message today. If you commit violence in our city, we will find you and we will hold you accountable. We take every act of violence seriously. In every investigation, this case and beyond, we use every tool and technique at our disposal to bring perpetrators to justice and to protect our community. Our detectives and investigators work tirelessly with one shared goal, and that is ensuring that those who harm others face the full weight of accountability. To those who commit crimes, we will find you. We will hold you accountable. Let these arrests serve as a warning. If you choose to endanger the safety of our community, you will face the consequences. Now I will turn it over to Assistant Chief Ramey Kyle, who will provide more details with respect to this investigation.
Good morning. I'm Ramey Kyle, Assistant Chief of Investigative Services Bureau. At 5 a.m. on Sunday, October 27th, 3rd District officers responded to the report of an unconscious person in the 500 block of T Street Northwest. Officers located Brian Smith unresponsive on a sidewalk. Smith was transported to an area hospital where he was admitted for treatment of critical injuries. There was no evidence of a crime on T Street. At that time, our officers and detectives did not know Smith's identity, as he was located without any form of identification. His identity was learned later that day after friends and family reported him missing. Our detectives soon determined that Smith had been robbed shortly before being found unconscious, and video footage of the suspects was located in the vicinity of the 500 block of T Street Northwest. Detectives pieced together that those same suspects were linked to 3 similar robberies that occurred shortly after Smith was discovered. The first was an assault with intent to commit robbery that occurred around 5:50 a.m. in the 1900 block of 14th Street Northwest, where suspects approached multiple victims, assaulted them, but fled without obtaining any property. This offense was captured on surveillance cameras, and that footage was released to the public to aid in our investigation. The next offense occurred just minutes later at approximately 5:55 a.m. in the 1800 block of Vermont Avenue Northwest. The suspects demanded and successfully obtained the victim's property and fled in a vehicle. The victim here was not injured. The final offense occurred at approximately 7:22 a.m. in the 900 block of Rhode Island Avenue Northeast. There, the suspects demanded and successfully obtained property from another victim and fled the same vehicle. The victim here also was not injured. For the last 2 weeks, our detectives have worked around the clock investigating these cases. They canvassed a wide area around each offense, uncovering video footage critical to identifying the suspects. We were also able to track cell phones taken in the robberies and monitor transactions made on stolen credit cards. All those efforts paid off early Thursday morning when our investigators closed in on a 14-year-old suspect. The 14-year-old was located asleep in a stolen vehicle and was arrested without incident. Later Thursday, we located a second suspect, a 16-year-old who was also arrested without incident. Both suspects are charged with 3 counts of robbery and 1 count of assault with intent to commit robbery. They face additional charges for unlawful use of a vehicle, fraud, receiving stolen property, and unlawful possession of ammunition. Tragically, Mr. Smith succumbed to his injuries on Thursday, November 7th. His death is still under investigation. Additional charges may be brought depending on the results of additional testing requested by the Northern Virginia Medical Examiner's Office. Many detectives put in a lot of work into this extensive investigation, and I would like to especially thank the 3rd District Detectives Unit for their efforts from the very beginning of this investigation. With that, I will now turn it back over to Chief Smith.
Thank you, Chief Kyle. What I want to also say is that these offenses are unfortunately another incident where we see young people turning to a crime of violence. It is always and has been my top priority to continue our efforts with working with and engaging our youth, and we will continue to work with our government partners and our community to put forth whatever measures we need to ensure that our young people are moving in the right direction. As you heard, cameras played a critical role in solving this crime. That's why we continue to urge members of our community, business owners, to please register your cameras or your security cameras with Camera Connect DC so that we can build out our network. The faster we're able to track down critical investigative leads, the quicker we are to bring a lot of these cases to closure. I also want to address some concerns we heard from the community in the last few weeks. There is no indication at this time that these 4 robbery cases were motivated by hate or bias. There is no connection between these offenses and a potentially hate-motivated assault that occurred earlier that morning in the 1900 block of 14th Street Northwest. I'd again like to express my condolences to the family and my gratitude and appreciation to our detectives who worked tirelessly to bring this case to a closure. At this time, I'll take any questions you may have. Yes, sir. Oh, Mark, I'm sorry. Mark.
Can you tell us about the weapon that was used? You mentioned the finding ammunition with him. I think we heard that he suffered trauma to the head, Mr. Smith. Can you tell us what weapon was used, if it was recovered?
I'll have Chief Kyle answer that question. I don't think we had any weapon recoveries at this point in our investigation. As you know, even though we've conducted the investigation that led to the arrest, we're still doing in-depth investigation with respect to what occurred with Mr. Brian Smith as well as the other robbery victims.
So can you tell us about the weapon? Was a gun used in any of these cases?
No, there was no gun used, but we did find ammunition in the vehicle.
Chief, you had mentioned the importance of the video in these cases here. In the case of the robbery of Brian Smith, what did the video show that could have possibly led to his injuries, and is there enough evidence at this point to move forward with possible murder charges?
Well, as you know, a lot of these cases are under investigation. They have to be presented to the U.S. Attorney's Office or the Office of Attorney General in this case because they're juveniles for further investigation. So I won't go into the details of what was on the video. But as we've stated earlier, in particular with this case, we have not yet made a determination based on the results that we're waiting from the Virginia OCME's office with respect to how Mr. Smith actually succumbed to his injuries.
The Office of Chief Medical Examiner of Virginia, why are they handling that case?
I believe Mr. Smith was transported to Virginia for further medical treatment, which is where he succumbed to his injuries.
Okay. So, was there an issue with D.C. hospitals at the time or something?
No.
What was the reason why he was sent to Virginia?
I don't know the reasons with respect to that. You'd probably have to speak with his family.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Morning, Chief.
Good morning.
I know you shared that the attacks themselves were not connected. In speaking with the suspects, did they share a motive or why they chose to do this?
At this point, they have not. I think one of the individuals did identify himself on one of the videos, which also led to us making the arrest.
I know you also mentioned, I believe you said a 14-year-old suspect was found in a car in the early morning.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know if he had guardians? Was he someone that was unhoused, or his situation?
So both of these individuals are D.C. residents. These young children are D.C. residents. I'm sure they have parents. We have made some contact with one of the individuals' guardian or parent, but we're still continuing with the investigation with respect to the who, what, when, where, and why these young people were out. And I've said it on many occasions, young people should be at home, and they should be parentified by an adult to ensure they know where their children are at all times.
Had these two suspects had interactions with police in the past, from your knowledge?
I don't think so, because they're juveniles. Okay, we cannot provide that information because they're juveniles.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So just to clarify, did either of them have prior arrest records, either the 14-year-old or the 16-year-old?
As I stated to the other reporter, that we're unable to provide that information because they're juveniles.
And did either arrestee have involvement with other DC agencies prior to this
I still
incident?
can't speak to that because they're juveniles. Yes, ma'am. Any other questions? Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief. Just to follow up here, you had mentioned that there was no evidence of a crime on T Street regarding the case of Brian Smith. Can you describe the nature of his injuries?
I cannot describe the nature of his injuries. Again, that's still a part of the investigation, which will help us to build out the case if there are other charges that we may lodge against these young individuals. What I will say is that the cameras did help us determine who the individuals were.
And they did show that he was assaulted by those suspects.
Again, I cannot get into the details of it because that's a part of the case. So I would suggest that we wait until this case moves forward with the Attorney General's office.
Did it at least show the evidence of a robbery of Brian Smith by these
It
suspects?
led us to believe that these two individuals committed the robbery of Mr. Brian Smith.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Mark. Yes. Yes, and thank you for that question, Mark. You know, one of the things that I did just recently was that I assigned a commander to oversee our district investigations division, and what that will do is help us to really look at a lot of the pattern robberies that we've been seeing in these areas, and they will be focused on doing just that across our city. In this area in particular, we have managed to put up additional cameras in this location. We have also, and I'll use this, extended a traffic box in certain areas of U Street, specifically on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday nights. We are now using our drones as an opportunity to really get a pictorial view of what's happening in this particular community, and we're also making sure that our Falcon is up whenever we hear a report of any robbery. So we are very intentional about our robbery suppression initiative being launched in this area, especially on nights where we've seen patterns of robberies occurring in this community. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right. Right. And so when you think about U Street, I don't know if you've been down here on Fridays or Saturday nights, but it's pretty crowded, and the crowd is really large and really thick. And so in an effort for us to really manage the crowds in that space, and to also help us to make a decision as to when we need to close the roadways and open the roadways up, it gives us an aerial view of what we're seeing, but it also gives us the opportunity to be able to respond to it, and I'll say by air with our Falcon, to areas where we know that there are pattern robberies taking place within a split second. It is a new use of the drone, and we will continue to use whatever technology that we have to ensure that we are fighting crime here in the District of Columbia. Yes, sir.
Chief, you started by saying this is another instance of young people being involved with violence. Sometimes we hear that young people get involved because they specifically don't think they'll face serious criminal charges because they're underage. What's your message to young people who think that? What's your message to the community regarding that?
Well, I hope that, and not just today, but I mean, this team, and I commend the Metropolitan Police Department in every district. They work very tirelessly whenever we are engaged in a pattern robbery of crimes or any crimes that are occurring across our city. And we saw an uptick, if you will, or an increase of juveniles engaged in a lot of criminal activity last year. We've seen that kind of come down a little bit this year, but it's still not where we need young people to be. And my message to young people is what I said at the beginning. If you commit a violent crime here in this city, we will find you and we will hold you accountable. Thank you, everyone.
One note in this area, because we talk about whole of government response. So one of the things that happens in this community, and we'd be remiss not to recognize our partners at DPW, DDOT, CSOSA, ABCA, Fire EMS that are out every Friday and Saturday night, and then on Sunday nights really working together to do enforcement, to help with crowd management, all in this corridor and also in the Connecticut Avenue corridor, our two real heavy nightlife corridors. So we believe in a whole of government response. Certainly MPD takes the lead, but it takes really all of us on Fridays and Saturday nights to manage what's happening down here. So we want to make sure that we recognize the efforts of our government partners as well. Thanks.